Federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement Department, or ICE, reported the nationwide detention so far of almost 8,800 undocumented immigrants and the deportation of about 5,700 immigrants in the first 2 weeks of President Donald Trump's second term. That's a lower number per day of detentions and deportations than under the Biden administration last year. In the fiscal year 2025, the average was 856 per day as of November 30th. They are now reporting 407 per day in the last 2 weeks, according to the Cato Institute. The Trump administration has been trying to heavily publicize these roundups, inviting network TV cameras to accompany some raids and sending the head of the Department of Homeland Security on others. Here in Florida, arrests have been made in at least 12 counties. Some of those arrested have been charged with serious crimes such as murder, sexual assault of a minor, assault with a deadly weapon, money laundering, and illegal drug possession. Others were arrested for less serious crimes, such as operating a motor vehicle without a valid driver's license. And joining us now to talk about what's happened this week is Tomas Kennedy from the Florida Immigrant Coalition. He was born in Argentina. He came to the U.S. with his parents at the age of 10, first living in New Jersey before settling down in Miami. And after living as an undocumented immigrant for more than a decade, Tomas became involved in student activism. He graduated as an international relations major from Florida International University. Tomas Kennedy, welcome to the program.
Thank you for the invitation.
Do we know how extensive the raids have been in Florida? I mentioned 12 counties. Is that the same number that you're hearing?
Yeah, we're hearing similar numbers. You know, we've heard of raids in Miami-Dade County, all over the county. I mean, even in areas where, you know, traditionally we've never seen immigration enforcement in a large scale before. You know, very wealthy areas like Coco Plum, for example. We've seen immigration enforcement in areas of Broward, in the Tampa area, even in the north part of the state, right? Leon County, in Tallahassee, we've heard of immigration enforcement operations. So they seem to be pretty widespread, and I think the counties that you listed are more or less accurate.
And are the people being rounded up, are they all criminals?
Definitely not. We're seeing a lot of people that are getting swept up in these operations. What Tom Homan, the border sergeant under Trump, called collateral damage, right? That's how they refer to these human beings. Just this week, we've heard that, and of course, I'm not going to use names, but someone's nanny was ambushed in her driveway, and her and her husband were detained. Ultimately, she wasn't taken because they had small children with them, but her husband was detained. In Miami-Dade, we've seen spouses of U.S. citizens detained. We've seen workers, in private establishments. There was a high-profile case that's all over the news today in Miami-Dade yesterday of a middle school teacher that was detained not at the school, I want to clarify that, but during their immigration hearing, because they have DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which protects them from deportation and grants them a work permit, theoretically and technically, really. But for some reason, this individual was detained.
The Trump administration has moved to remove temporary protected status from some groups, including Venezuelans. What's been the reaction in Miami of the Venezuelan community that they're now more are eligible for deportation?
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to speak for the whole community because I am not Venezuelan, but my sense is that a lot of them do feel betrayed. And in fact, Venezuelan activists had a press conference a couple of days ago where they expressed that sentiment, right? I mean, this designation protected 250,000 Venezuelans under TPS, and there's another designation that protects 300,000 Venezuelans that, it's expected to be rescinded by the Trump administration. And the way that the administration did it is particularly offensive. They're justifying it by saying that most of these Venezuelans are members of a transnational gang called Tren de Aragua that's been sensationalized to basically propagate these anti-immigrant talking points. But, TPS recipients have to apply and then be vetted by the U.S. government to get that benefit, that protection, and they have to show a good character and a substantial criminal, right? So the U.S. government has determined that these individuals are not criminals, right? So it's really offensive and bizarre, the claims that the Trump administration is making over this extremely large population.
There's some debate in Tallahassee about how many farm workers here in Florida are undocumented. The governor has said that Florida farmers have an affinity for cheap, illegal foreign labor. But the farming community says they rarely hire undocumented immigrants. Wondering, what's your take? Are there raids being conducted in Florida's farmlands, and are undocumented immigrants being arrested there?
We've heard of some operations happening in rural areas. Nothing incredibly widespread as of now, but I do want to clarify: 37 to 47% of Florida's agricultural workforce in the fields, meaning the people that are harvesting our crops, are non-citizens. That's the reality of it. If even a significant portion of that, almost half of our agricultural workforce, is disrupted, that means higher prices for consumers in our supermarket. It means disrupted supply chains. So that is the reality of how our economy works.
And the farming community, though, says most of the farm workers they have who are not U.S. citizens are hired through the H-2A program, that they come here legally.
Yeah, a significant portion of them are, but the reality is a lot of them are non-citizens and a lot of them are undocumented. And I think most people know that. That's pretty common knowledge.
Well, Tomas Kennedy, thanks a lot. Thanks for coming on the program.
No, thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it.
We're joined now by Devron Gibbons. He's a businessman, a vice chair and trustee at St. Petersburg College and FAMU, and a Republican. April Schiff is a political consultant and the Hillsborough Republican State Committee woman. Rochelle Reback is a retired attorney, the host of WMNF Radio's Midpoint Wednesday show, and a Democrat. And Alan Cohn is a journalist and a Democrat. Nice to have you all here. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, I want to ask you about what you heard Tomas Kennedy tell us just a moment ago about undocumented people being rounded up. And April, let me go to you. What was your take on what Tomas told us?
Well, I thought it was interesting. I mean, I think that there's two sides to every story, right? And I think that what we've seen over the last several weeks since the new administration came in is an implementation of campaign promises. And I think you're going to see that continue. It happened in his first term. It's going to happen in his second term. The state of Florida has been very strong in supporting the immigration reforms. And I think you're going to see a solid immigration reform bill come out of the state legislature that's going to be implemented across the state of Florida. And we're going to see a lot of changes and a lot of differences. We already do. And part of this is negotiation and style and how to get to where you want to be at the end of the day. What we've already seen since Inauguration Day, January 20th, is a huge decline in illegals coming across the borders, all across the United States. And that was the goal. And so we're already accomplishing the goals that were set out by this president and this administration, which we have not seen during the Biden administration the last 4 years. It's been tremendous. That was number one
campaign promise?
Yeah, and he will stick up to his campaign promises. He has proven that in his track record, and that's what he's doing today. His method may not be what everybody approves of, but at the end of the day, he's going to accomplish his goals.
Shirley, what do you think of what Tomas Kennedy told us?
I think that the idea of mass deportations is largely a fiction. Deportations have been at levels that are comparable to the Biden administration. The numbers were reduced at the border during the Biden administration. It's nothing new right now except for the sensationalization of the concept of mass deportation. Yesterday, South Florida teachers unions had a press conference announcing that there have been no ICE raids in Florida schools, for example, and U.S. immigration, according to The Guardian, is gaming Google to create a mirage of mass deportations. Thousands of press releases about decades-old enforcement actions have topped the Google search results, but they were all updated with a timestamp after Trump's inauguration. So this is a big PR campaign in order to engender fear in the immigrant community. But is it really happening? I don't think so, not yet anyway.
Devin, I was struck by the fact that some of these folks are criminals. They're being, murderers, people that have committed assault. But some of these folks have driver's license offenses. A teacher who was going through the process, as Tomas Kennedy told us, of DACA was arrested at her hearing. So some of these folks don't appear to be these hardened criminals that are being rounded up.
That may very well be true, but illegal is illegal, right? There's no substitute for the law. Ignorance of the law is not a defense. I learned that in law school right away, right? And so just because you don't know something doesn't mean that you can use it as a defense. I will tell you, as April said earlier, it quite frankly boils down to this. The guy made some campaign promises. He's holding to those promises. Whether you agree with them or not, I think when people make promises on the campaign trail, you got to listen to them, and now he's carrying them out. I will tell you the only thing that I think Florida will figure this out, right? Florida has done a pretty good job of figuring it out. Our state relies on agriculture a lot, and quite frankly, we're going to figure out how to have a fine balance of who needs to be here and who doesn't.
Al, what do you think of what we heard there?
Dick, it doesn't solve any real problems. All they are doing is pandering to people's fears and distrust of immigrants. And they're doing it because they don't have answers to the actual real problems that Americans face. And I brought art. I want to share it with you. If you're talking about the real problems that Americans face, it's this. It's productivity and wages. And you could see in around 1970, our parents' generations, the reason why they did so well is because as productivity improved, so did their pay. But at some point, corporations made the decision that productivity can rise, but wages don't have to rise. Republicans don't have an answer for this issue. I don't know if they care to. So what they do is they distract people from their concerns and point to the boogeyman. And the boogeyman are immigrants. And what we're about here is not solving any real problems, even causing more problems, because as the gentleman that you interviewed said, 30 to 40% of crops in Florida are picked by immigrants. You have the citrus industry, which is on its deathbed in Florida because of agricultural issues, but also labor issues. But that is really not as important as making a point, and that's what this administration is doing.
I would agree with your board. Where I disagree is a good friend of mine, God bless his soul, Ambassador Mel Sembler, once said to me, the problem with America is not the wages, it's not the people, it is that we don't produce anything of substance anymore. You remember when Samsung now makes television, but you remember Zenith? That was a good American company. And I can point to so many other things that are no longer made in the USA.
Whose decision was it to move American manufacturing offshore to places like China, South Asia?
Some of the companies, but sometimes they were faced to do that because taxes got high. It cost so much to pay people. So there's a lot of different reasons why companies had to, and quite frankly, when products are coming from other places and they're cheaper,
So
right?
should we
because
reduce taxes and wages to the levels of developing nations?
No, I didn't say that, but what I will say is that, remember, when we produce something, it's going to cost a little more. So we should push American products, and that would stop some of that.
Absolutely.
Okay.